Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Robin, and I am thrilled to welcome you to this space for real conversations about how we live, how we show up day in and day out, because the quality of our life is shaped by our habits. What we do in ordinary time allows us to be extraordinary. We can unpack what it takes to truly live well and be well in real life. Welcome to Life by Design. And I'm just so excited that you're here. On today's episode, I get to spend time with Stu McLaren. I'm so excited for you to be here. Stu is all things membership and community. He has been able to show us the framework on how we can monetize building communities for us to be able to be of service, for us to be able to chase some of those big goals. He tackles some big ideas that sometimes are roadblocks to building communities online, and how we can find these predictable profits, these recurring revenue sources, so that way we can be able to support our work, but also support other people. So this is a treat. He gives us lots of information. And if you haven't already done so, I would highly encourage you to pick up the book, Predictable Profits. It was so helpful for my team, and I wanted to bring it for you because I know it's going to make a big difference. Thanks for tuning in. Stu, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
There you go. We're going to have a good go. And so folks who might not yet be familiar with their work, I'm not sure if there's many left out there who might not be familiar with your work, but Stu, for those folks, can you give us just a wee little update about the good work that you're up to these days?
Yeah, my main focus is helping entrepreneurs, experts, people who have got wisdom to share, basically take that and share it with a lot more people through a membership. And I'm passionate about memberships because I had a business that, it was a great business, but it required a lot of me. And I wanted to find ways that I could create more leverage so I could spend more time with the people that matter most. That's my wife, Amy, and our kids, Marla and Sam. And ultimately that led me to memberships. And I just became so passionate about it because memberships create stability in a business, and they create predictability. And then they also give us the opportunity to serve so many more people. So the two big areas of my work is, number one, training others how to launch, grow, and scale profitable memberships. And the other side is our software, which are the tools to help people actually do that.
I absolutely love that. And speaking of predictable profits, I have to tell you, this was probably my most highlighted book in Q4 last year. As somebody who was exploring that whole membership piece, I feel so fortunate. My team and I had a chance to work with you, Stu, in person, which was an amazing event. Like being able to be in a room with you, have you walk us through ideas. Like, Stu, you are so talented and gifted at this whole area of how we can create these communities in such a genuine way. Like, this isn't just about like getting people together so we can get them to sign up for something that they're going to forget about and we're relying on that as
Right.
revenue. Like, this is like engaged communities. This is about it. And so again, thank you for putting this book into the world. I also have to say, you are like an open book in terms of how you share these ideas. Like, you're not gatekeeping this work. You're making it available, which is just so refreshing. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, buddy. That means a lot coming from you. And you know how much hard work goes into writing a book, and
Yeah.
you just never know who is reading it or who's getting value from it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of the fact that you are not gatekeeping this stuff, like you are giving people like literally blueprints. This is how you build a membership. One of the big ideas that I remember hearing you first speak on Jay Papazin's The One Thing podcast when you were a guest there, you talked about this idea about who we are as a community and being able to help people answer the question, who we are. Can you tell us a wee bit about that idea? Because it was so significant to my learning and my understanding of communities and memberships.
I think there's a big difference between a transaction and an identity. And when somebody joins a community, initially it's a transaction. They're
Yeah.
joining because they want to be able to get something from joining that membership or that community. Maybe it's they want to learn some skills.
Mhm.
Maybe it's they want to solve a problem that they have. Or maybe they're just looking for convenience. Maybe somebody's providing lesson plans or printables or templates, and they just want the convenience of that. And that's initially why they're joining. But the reason that people will stay not for months, but for years inside of a community is when it makes that transition from a transaction to an identity.
Mhm.
And so, one of the things that I would encourage all leaders to think about when we are starting and growing and nurturing communities is, who are we?
Yeah.
Who are we as a group of people? How do we show up? What do we think? What do we feel? How do we support each other? How do we take action? And the more you give intentional thought to that, the more you can begin to craft a community and an environment that helps pull that out. So I'll give you a couple examples.
Yeah, I love that.
Years ago, we were launching a brand new community, and we launched and it was super successful. We had thousands of people join. I'm like, super pumped and excited. The only downside was we had done this launch right before I was scheduled to go on a family getaway. Now, our family getaways, we completely shut down.
Mhm.
I'm just locked in on Amy and the kids. And so we went to this summer camp that
Mhm.
for families, and it was on an island. There was no like internet. There was no, we had to go by canoe to get to it type thing. And so we do this big launch, and Amy's like, okay, so you're going to leave your computer at home, right? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. But meanwhile, I'm like super excited. I got like thousands of people that just joined this community. There's all these conversations that are happening. So we're in this cabin, no like Wi-Fi or internet or anything, but I had my phone, and I'm an early riser.
Mhm.
And I wake up, and Marla's still asleep.
Yeah.
Amy's still asleep. I'm like,
I
okay,
feel
this is the
this.
perfect time. So
Yeah.
I pull out the phone and I check the community, and it is buzzing. There's like
Mhm.
all kinds of conversation that's happening. But then there's this one woman who is super negative,
Mhm.
and she is putting down everything. And what's happening is I could start to see her negativity is suppressing
Yeah.
everybody else's response. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying here, Robin?
Totally get it. Totally get it.
And I'm like, if we don't address this, then it's going to continue, and it's going to become an even bigger problem.
Yeah.
So right away, I sent an email to our team, and I said, I would like you to fully refund this
Mhm.
person. And then what I'll do is I'll make an announcement in the community of how we show up, because I hadn't properly established how we show up. So I sent an email, I sent a message to this woman, and I said, hey, listen, thank you so much for signing up. But as part of your 7 day refund period, you have the option, if you're not happy for whatever reason, you get a full refund. And similarly, if we're not
You're
happy
not
for whatever reason, we can issue a full refund.
Yeah.
So I can see you're not happy. And
Yeah.
so I'm just going to save us a bunch of time, and I'm going to issue you a full refund.
Mhm.
Well, of course, she came back. She's like, how dare you do this? How blah, 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 blah. And anyway, it didn't matter. So we issued her a full refund. Then I sent a message to the community, and I didn't mention anybody's
Mhm.
specific name, but I said, as a community, the way we show up for each other
Mhm.
is we give positive feedback.
That's
We
great.
encourage others. And if there's something where you want to give, critical feedback or whatever, always make sure that it is laced with love
Yeah.
and not, full of, negativity, putting people down,
Yeah.
etc. Because how we show up in this community is we want to be supportive, and we want to be encouraging, and we want to be positive. And so that whole message framed up now part of the identity of who we are as a
Great.
community. And so I think as leaders, we want to be intentional in thinking those things through ahead of time.
Mhm.
And you can start to communicate that as part of the onboarding.
Yeah.
And there will be opportunities like this
Yeah.
that will create, emerge, where you can communicate how we show up as a community. And what was interesting was I didn't have to mention the person's name,
Mhm.
but everybody knew who
Everyone
she
knew.
was.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love how you frame that. So thank you for giving us such a practical example. And one of the things it makes me think about is this idea, and I was just talking about it this week with a colleague, that you can't outperform your identity. And
Mm,
what I mean by that is that like people can, try to their best. They can put habits, skills, tools, tricks, whatever, but ultimately we can't outperform, but we can underperform our identity if we don't have it established. So being able to say, as again in your book, you talk about this, we are a group of people we are
yes.
people who do this idea that we are persons, again, as you described, show up with optimism, with positivity, with support. There is enough places of noise and negativity that people have access to on the internet. This doesn't have to be that. And you are actually like distinguishing yourself from, and you're setting yourself up from those types of groups to say, yeah, I appreciate this is how a lot of people show up, and especially behind keyboards, but we are going to do this really differently. And we are a group of like-minded persons that are coming together because we actually need a different way of being able to build these communities. And one of the other ideas that we talk about in my work specifically is the idea is that it's actually really hard to find community as an adult. And
Mm,
what you're doing is you're creating these blueprints, as I said before, where people are able to build these communities, these memberships. And I'm just so curious, how do you navigate that tension, perhaps? And maybe, in the example that you described, it's, somebody was needing something, right? That woman, that person who was in that negative headspace, she was needing something, we weren't able to provide it in the community because that's not who we are, right? This isn't therapy. This isn't that type of support. What is it around that tension piece about you're charging people, right? Like you're
mm.
monetizing connection. And I would just love you to help me like untangle some of that because I know for some persons that sometimes is a wee bit of a barrier.
So is it the question around like feeling guilty around charging
Ooh.
for access to a community? Is that where you're
Oh, I
coming from?
love that. I love that reframe of the maybe yeah, let's say that. Let's say that. Yes.
Okay. Well, here's how I think about it. Cause there was a time, Robin, when I definitely struggled with the guilt of making money.
Yeah.
And what would happen is that my business would get up to around the $400,000 mark.
Mhm.
And at around the $400,000 mark, there was like this voice in the back of my head that would say, "Whoa, Stewie, that's that's way more money than both of your parents combined have ever made.
Mhm.
This is a lot. Like, and you're not working anywhere near as hard as they ever worked.
Yeah.
Do you really deserve this?"
Mm.
And so subconsciously, what would happen is I would start to self sabotage my own success. I'd
Mm.
stop calling clients back, or I'd stop running the marketing campaigns that I knew would work, and my income would come back down. And
Mhm.
it's like my subconscious was like, okay, that's better. That's
Yeah.
better. Now, it wasn't until a very specific moment that all of that changed. And the moment was my wife and I were looking to build the first school for our nonprofit charity. We have a
Mhm.
charity called
Yes.
Village Impact, and we build schools over in Kenya. And we're there and we're meeting with the community, and I'm meeting with the chairman of this community. And I asked him how much things cost. We had no idea. And I said, "How much does it cost to fund the full time salary of a teacher?" And he thought for a moment and he said, "It's about $100 a month." And I was like,
Wow.
$100 a month? And then I had this connection because we were selling a single site license of our software for $97. And so in my mind, I was just thought, well, wait a minute. If I just sell one more license of the software and
Yeah.
I just allocate that to funding the full time salary of the teacher, imagine the impact that I could have.
Yeah.
And then the real light bulb went off, which was like, wait a minute, Stu. What if you make a whole lot more money and
Yes.
you just give a whole lot more to the people and causes you're passionate about? Imagine the impact you could have then.
Yeah.
And in that moment, what I realized was the more money I make, the more impact I can
Mm.
have.
I love that.
And money didn't get associated with being selfish.
Yeah.
Money became a vehicle to be generous and philanthropic. And so now, for the record, Robin, I love making money. I love making money. And the reason I love
Yep.
making money is because the more money I make, the more good I can do.
Yeah.
And so, what I would say to anybody who has ever felt guilty about making money, you're not alone.
Yeah.
This is a very common thing. And more importantly to be aware of is it happens on a subconscious level and it's holding you back from reaching your full potential. But the moment that you make the connection that the more money you make, the more good you can do, now all of a sudden, it's not about you, it's about helping others. And you become fired up and passionate and excited to go and make more sales. You absolutely want to charge to be in your community because that one gives you more funding to be able to create an even better experience for people. Look, it costs money to be able to deliver a world-class experience. And so the
100%.
only way you can do that is if you got money coming in. That's number one. Number two, the more money you make, the more you can give to people and causes that you're passionate about. And the moment that connection happens, it will unlock you to a whole new level of success. Because the very next year, I went from a few $100,000 to millions of dollars in our business, and we've done tens of millions ever since. And we've donated millions of dollars to charity. And so that is just a reframe and a connection that you make to the meaning behind the money that you're making.
Yeah, that's such a brilliant example. I appreciate that. And again, when you draw that correlation between that output and service, right? That
Yeah.
greater good, like you have no problem advocating, knowing that this is where it's going, right? Like you are setting up people for like legacy in terms of impact. And again, for folks who haven't checked out your information there, like you have so many beautiful stories highlighted on your website, on your social media that shows the impact that you are making with the schools and just how significant that ripple effect is on so many different planes and so many different areas too. So I love that reframe. So thank you. Now, my next question is okay, so we're fired up. We're getting excited about our community. It's something that the world needs right now. And how do you ensure, as somebody who wants to build a community or start your membership, that you are able to find your people? Like where do you suggest that somebody who is looking to build their community, where do they find their followers? Where do they find people that aren't just kind of social media tourists that like to like watch what you're doing, but then they don't actually like buy the ticket?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I talked about in Predictable Profits is that when I'm looking at any kind of market to identify, like, would this make sense for a membership or a paid community? I'm really looking for three indicators. So, number one is I'm looking for a market that has an ongoing problem. So, what I mean by that would be like weight loss, as an
Yeah.
example. Somebody doesn't go from being overweight to their ideal weight like that. It takes time to solve that problem. Or we were just talking about, dogs and
Yeah.
puppies. And you don't go from a wildly out of control dog to the perfect puppy like that. It
Yeah.
takes time to train that puppy. And that's an example of an ongoing problem. So if you're in a market where there's an ongoing problem, that is like green light, thumbs up.
Yeah.
You're in a great market. Second thing I look for is where people are learning to or wanting to learn skills.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of people in our community who have thriving memberships where they're teaching different skills. Allie Kay is a great example. She's an artist. She has a community of over 6,000 plus people who are in her community learning to paint her specific style of painting. I think of Bonnie Snowden. She has a community of over 5,000 plus people who are looking to learn how to draw realistic animals with colored pencils. But a skill can be anything. It could be art, it could be drawing, it could be playing an instrument, it could be learning to grow a business, it could be a wide variety of different things. But if you're in a market where people are looking to learn a skill, then green light, thumbs up, you're in a great market. The third indicator that I look for is where people are looking to save time or make their life easier. And there's lots of great opportunities. Some of the most common here would be like lesson plans
Yeah.
or would be like templates or scripts. So I'll give you some real world examples. Tara Phillips, she was an educator for 25 years, specifically working in the classroom with kids with autism. Now, over that time, she had developed a whole bunch of different resources to help her and her kids that she was working with. Well, then she had this light bulb moment, which was like, wait a minute, there's probably a lot of other educators
Yes.
who could benefit from all these resources that I've created. So she launched a membership. In a 2 and a bit year period, that went from zero to a multi-million-dollar a year membership. And she's providing lesson plans to other educators who are working with kids with autism. So anytime you can save people time or make their life easier, then that would be, again, a green light, thumbs
Yes.
up, you're in a great market. So overall, when I'm looking at a market, I'm looking for an ongoing problem,
No problem.
skills, or can I make this more convenient for them? And if I answer yes to just any one of those, then that is a good market. And then how you attract those people is you start talking about the problem that you're looking to solve, or you start talking about the skills that you're looking to teach, or you start talking about how to save time with the thing that you're doing. And that is naturally going to attract the people that you best want to serve.
Amazing. I love that. And again, it's so useful to be able to look at that thing that you're thinking about, whatever that is, and be able to use that framework to be able to say, like, is this an ongoing problem? Like, is this something that there's traction there? Is this something that, there's skills, there's tools, there's habit, there's things that you can create? And then that piece about, just being able to really save people time, because our time for so many of us is our currency, right? So, I jokingly say this with my team, but like literally for what in my speaking work, and I've shared this I think before with you, Stu, that like there is like a baseline fee for me to like leave my family, right? For me to like get on a plane and fly across the country. That's going to be different than if I do it locally or if I do it virtually, because that is something that time with family to me, again, is one of those value aligned pieces that it's important, right? So again, that idea of saving people time, our time is such a precious resource. So we want to be so mindful about that. So I love that that's your framework. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
too have a family tax,
family tax.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I call it.
Yeah.
Same thing when I'm doing like VIP consulting days.
Yes.
Like when if you come locally, it's way cheaper than if you want me to go to
Mhm.
you. And I've had clients like Dave Ramsey down in Nashville. He
Yeah.
flew me down because he wanted me there for his whole team, and it made more sense that way. But there was a family tax for that. It's like
Yeah.
it's much more significant because of the same thing that you said. It's more time, and I just
Mhm.
think that in any membership or any community, there's a few key factors that make joining that membership a no brainer. And when you can save people money, when you can save them time, when you can create a community, because one of the other elements that I didn't talk about there was that a community is wrapped around all of that. If people are solving an ongoing problem and they're surrounded by others who are on a similar journey, it's very powerful. If people are learning skills and they're surrounded by others who are learning those same skills, very powerful. Or
Yeah.
are there people who are in the same industry or market that can benefit from those convenient type memberships? Very powerful. So anytime that you can wrap community in that, it just takes everything you're doing to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Okay, so again, just to keep going, diving deeper, if that's good with you. So you've done the things, you're like putting the call out there, a wee bit of that kind of field of dreams, build it and they will come, right? You set it up and maybe you're not seeing that. You're not finding your people yet. And I appreciate any time in entrepreneurship, we have those kind of dark moments of the soul where you think like, what am I doing? Like, where are my people? I can't find them. Would you have any suggestions or tools that like, okay, you're talking about it, you're putting it out there, but you're just not seeing those numbers like you described with some of your case studies of people that you've had a chance to support and learn with?
It's really easy to think about attracting hundreds or thousands of members.
Mhm.
But really, a membership starts with the first person that says yes.
I love that.
And that first person is going to have a problem that they're
Mhm.
looking to solve, skills that they're wanting to learn, or they're wanting to save time in some area. And so instead of like getting lost in the thought of like, how do I track like thousands and thousands of people? Or, oh no, I don't have the audience. Like, what am I to do? Maybe I
Mhm.
should wait. Yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait until I build the audience. And we just delay and delay and delay our dreams. No. All you gotta do is you're just gonna find
Mhm.
one person who has the problem or wants to learn the skill or wants to save the time, and just offer to help them, wait for it, for free.
Yeah.
What? What? Wait a minute,
Yeah.
Stu. You just talked about that you love making money, and now you're saying you want to give away your skills for free? Yeah, I am. Because in the beginning, the most important thing is that you develop an example of how you're able to help a person like that with the thing that they're wanting help with. And so sometimes that means putting out a post on Facebook as an example and saying, hey, listen, I have developed a process that helps this kind of person with this kind of thing. If you or anybody you know is experiencing that kind of problem or wants to learn those kinds of skills or is losing a ton of time in this way and just wants some help, I would love to talk to you because I would love to work with you for free in exchange for the example of how you went from point A to point B using what it is that I teach. And once that happens, now you got the most powerful resource and asset that any entrepreneur could have, which is a case study, an example of somebody just like the people that you want to serve who had the same problem and now has experienced tremendous progress and success. And so in the beginning, don't hide behind this poor me, I don't have the audience, I need to wait, blah, 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 blah. No. Just be of service. Start, instead of worrying about yourself, start worrying and thinking about the people that you want to serve, and just get out and start helping people and develop these stories of progress. And that is going to lead from one person to three, and three to 10, and 10 to 100, and 100 to 1,000. And because people want to work with people who get results. And so as long as you become known as the person who can help this kind of person get that kind of result, you will always be in demand.
Yeah, I absolutely love that reframe, and you're absolutely right. And it reminds me too of, I remember working with a leader, a large financial institution, and they were just really struggling with like their time on task. Like they were just being pulled in so many different directions. And I remember we were standing at the elevator. So you can imagine there's not a lot of time when you're literally waiting for an elevator. And it was after I'd done a keynote, and I said to him, I said, here, like he said, I don't even know, like, where do I go? I'm like, do you know what? If you've like in 10 seconds or less, this is what I would suggest, give it a go. And I said, I use this. I know people that I work with use this. It's a really simple concept, but it makes a big difference. And I kid you not, I remember like 6 weeks later, somebody reached out on LinkedIn and they said, you did some work with a colleague of mine. He said it was a game changer. And you were, I think he had you in as a consultant. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't even know who he's speaking of. Right. Like I'm like, and so I kind of did some follow-up questions being like, yeah, I'm super excited. I'm glad you reached out. But like, I got to tell you, I'm not quite sure what we're chatting about here. I just need some clarity. Anyway, because it sounded as if like this was somebody I had coached. Like this was literally someone that I was in the trenches with. And we back kind of, did a little bit of kind of recon, figure out, okay, how is this? How are we connected? Who do we might think we know? And all of a sudden I was just like, wow, this literally was that 10-second elevator conversation. And I was fully transparent. I'm like, dude, I did not coach this person. I literally shared this one tool. And he's like, well, that's what I need. I need that one thing. And again, and then it turned into a coaching dynamic, which was awesome. But again, you just illustrated exactly what that was for me. Whereas I was able to show them, I'm like, this is how you work your day in quarters. And this person used it and then was, doing testimonials of this service, even though there wasn't even quite a service to be referring people to.
Well, the greatest way to stay in business long term is to just focus on helping get people results.
Yes.
And then just sharing the story
Yes.
of those people who were at point A and ultimately got to point B because they followed this process or joined this thing. And so at the end of the day, like, my goal in all that we do is just to help our people make and experience progress. And sometimes we think it's got to be massive progress. Like we've got to help them, have these huge wins. No. Because the whole journey of going from where they are to where they want to be, it's a whole series of different steps. And there are little wins all along that journey that are worth celebrating and speaking to, because somebody in your audience is going to be at a different point in that journey. There's going to be somebody watching and listening to this today who is at the very beginning stages. They haven't really been thinking about a membership site before, but they're like, ooh, this crazy Canadian, he's saying some things that are kind of resonating. Maybe I could start a membership. So the wheels are turning. There's going to be somebody who's already got an audience right now, and they are already helping their audience. Maybe they're giving a ton of content away for free on social media,
Yeah.
but all they would need to do is create a little structure and
Mhm.
invite people into a membership. And they're at that point like, okay, what do I need to say? And what do I need to do that? And then there's people that have already got established memberships.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, Stu, I've hit a flat line.
Yeah.
Now, how do I take this to another level?
Yeah.
And so I would find stories
Mhm.
of different people all along the journey of progress.
Mhm.
I would not only tell the mega success stories
Yeah.
because most people can't relate to that.
Mhm.
They're going to relate to all of the stories along the way. And as soon as they relate, that's when trust gets created.
Yes.
And that trust is when they lean in and they say, hey, Dr. Robin, I need that one thing that
Yeah.
you taught my friend.
Yeah.
Can you teach that to me? And that's where you and I, and anybody that tells stories in this way will always be in business because we're hyper focused on helping people get results.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, these are kind of like these data informed decisions, right? Like this idea that it's like we have data, and again, case study, case story is remarkable qualitative data. So often we don't have to wait till, again, we have these massive sample sizes, or like, as you're saying, these like, Herculean results of like massive transformation. The idea is these little data points, that's qualitative data. And I remember when I was teaching statistics and I was, in university, I would talk to my students because there was this almost like a wee bit of like a negative rep of qualitative data versus quantitative data. Like people want to be able to say 97% of people we surveyed a bazillion and this is the finding, right? Like people love these massive studies. And I remember saying to my students, like, hey, you guys have a little bit of beef with qualitative data, but like, as a qualitative, I did both forms of research, but as a qualitative research, I'm like, there's also a really special place for it. And I said, okay, let me ask you this question. I can give you a survey, right? Like I give you like a standardized paper and pencil survey, 1 to 7, you have to mark the boxes. And I said, or we can sit down and we can have just a 15-minute conversation. And I
Mm,
said, at the end of that, what will give me a deeper understanding of who you are? You
mm.
doing a standardized paper and pencil test, multiple choice or whatever, or if we had a 15-minute interview. And all of my students unanimously, Stu, said, oh my gosh, the interview, you would really know me. We could make some generalizations from that group data, but 15 minutes with me, you'd have a better picture. And I use that to illustrate, don't ever discount a well-designed case study, because
Mm.
understanding something really well, being able to share the insights from that one person. And as you're talking about at different points on a journey, it's so invaluable to the person who is looking for that solution.
And I think too, we can relate because we
Yeah.
can pull out the emotion. We can talk about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing. Years ago when I was starting my speaking career, I remember this moment because I wanted to be a speaker. I knew nothing about growing a speaking business. So I joined a local chapter of CAPS, which is the
Mhm.
Canadian Association for Professional Speakers. And I saw this incredible speaker. His name was Chris Robertson. And I was just fired up after his presentation. And I was like, I went up to him after. I said, I want to be like you.
Yes.
Like, how do I go from where I am to where you are as
Yeah.
quickly as possible? And he said, Stu, have you got your ticket to the CAPS National Conference? And I said, no, I don't. He said, okay, go there and you're going to learn so much and you're going to progress so quickly as a speaker. The problem, Robin, was I just graduated university. I was
Right.
shoulder deep in student debt. I didn't
Yeah.
have money to go to this expensive conference.
Yeah.
And to boot, it was on the complete opposite side of Canada, over on the West Coast. I'm like, how am I going to get there? So I thought creatively, and because I believe you and I are just one idea away from getting everything that we want. And so I thought, what could I do that would help pay for me to get out there? And I came up with a campaign called Help Stu Be Like You. By the
Oh,
way, it does help to have a name that
yes,
rhymes with a
with
lot of
you.
things.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so the campaign was called Help Stu Be Like You. And I asked for 5 minutes of time in front of the Toronto chapter of CAPS.
Yeah.
They never just give people speaking time randomly like that. But for whatever reason, they said okay. And I got up and I asked a question that immediately brought all these incredible professional speakers back to the moment where I was right then. And I said,
Yeah. With you.
how many of you remember starting your speaking career not knowing anything about the business? And of course, all their hands are up in the air. I said, and do you remember the confusion that you had and the naiveness that you had? And they all laughed. And I said, now, how many of you believe that it would be invaluable for a person like me who is where you once were to get out to that national conference? And they all said yes. I said, okay, now here's my pitch. I said, it's called Help Stu Be Like You.
Yeah.
I said, because you've all agreed that it would be valuable for me to get out there, but you have something that I don't, and I have something that you don't.
Yeah.
You have money and I have time.
Yes.
And I'm willing to exchange my time for a financial contribution of your choice, all of which will go to get me out to the CAPS National Conference. And I said, I'll do anything. I'll babysit your kids. I'll mow your lawn. I'll lick envelopes, whatever. And it's a financial contribution of your choice, all of which will go toward getting me out there. As soon as I finished, this gentleman stood up at the back. His name was Bob Urachuk. And he said, I'll pay for your flight. And then another gentleman, Yuri Chabursky, stood up. He said, and I'll pay for the cost of the conference. Boom, boom, just like that. It all happened. And I was like, what just happened? And I went to the back of the room afterwards to thank these gentlemen. And Bob Urachuk gave me a copy of his book, and he opened up to chapter 2 and he circled the title. And it said, you have the right to ask. And he said, Stu, I'm rewarding you because so many people have thought about doing what you just did. And so many people were in that exact position, wanting to go and do the thing that you want to do, get out to the national conference, but they just gave up as soon as a roadblock hit. He said, I remember that. I remember those early days as you were describing them. And he said, I'm rewarding you because you had the courage to ask. And so I share all this because most people fail not because they ask too much. It's because they fail because they never ask at all.
Yep.
And when you can connect and relate to people and take them back to that moment where they were or where they are, it creates this trust. Just like when I was describing like being that speaker in those early days, all those other professional speakers, they all knew what that was like because they had been there, and it created this connection and trust. And that's what then opens up conversations and opportunities. And so I just share this because I think stories are so powerful. As you said, qualitative data is really powerful because we connect here at the heart level. And that is different than connecting up here. When you connect here, you immediately create trust, and that trust now opens up conversations in a whole new, beautiful way.
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. And you know, I think it also taps into this idea, Stu, that like people genuinely want to help. Right. And I think there's this kind of misconception that we think that people actually don't want to help. But I do actually believe that people want to help. And, you know, even, you know, recently, as we've talked about, and I do want to hold space to say thank you for supporting, endorsing my new book, by the way. When I
Yes,
got
of
that
course.
back, I was so excited. So thank you for that. And what was kind of fascinating to me in that process of asking, I remember there was somebody on my wish list that I asked, and they responded, and it was, you know, maybe it was a canned response. That's okay. But the person said, like, this at this season, I'm not able to do an endorsement, but I just want you to know these are the steps that I take in terms of how I ask for endorsements. And they had this free resource. And so again, they were like, I don't have time to do this because, you know, again, I imagine this person gets gazillions endorsements, asks, whatnot. But it was just like, I still wanted to help. And the reason I share that is that, like, yes, people want help. And if I believe people genuinely do. But even if people aren't in positions to help right now, you know, the real gems out there, they will find a way to help, even if it's like asynchronous or even if it's in a way that isn't them. And again, so even a no could actually still be useful. A no can still help move that needle forward, which again, I just think genuinely people do want to help. And we do have to kind of find our confidence to be able to ask. And I love that chapter 2 title, that you have a right to ask.
Well, and I think too, when you ask, you give others permission to help.
Yeah.
And to your point, I truly believe that everybody deep down under wants to do good and to help others.
Yes.
Now, they may be able to help in a big way, and they may be able to help in a little way. But
Mhm.
I deep down believe that everybody truly wants to help others.
Yeah.
And when you ask, you give people permission to
Mhm.
help. If you never ask, people will never know how they can best show up for you. And
Yeah.
so I do think it's a great practice. And truthfully, like I was much better at this when I was younger. I think when
Mhm.
we get older,
Mhm.
maybe it's just me, we we have this resistance. We're like, oh, I don't want to bother
Yeah.
people, or maybe we get worried about like our, we don't want to bother people. We get worried about our reputation. Oh, maybe it's a weakness if I'm asking for help. And no. You just got to chuck that out the window. Stop
Yeah.
thinking about you, start thinking about others. And I believe that everybody wants to help in some way, and we give people permission to show up. And sometimes they, as you said, they'll be able to show up in a big way. Other times they won't be able to, but don't take it personally. It's more often just a matter of timing in their life. And it doesn't mean that they'll say no just because they say no today, that they're going to say no forever. And I've got many examples of moments in my life where somebody said a no to me initially, but down the road, I circled back and they said yes. And the
Yes.
timing was right. And
Yeah.
so I do think that asking is a practice that is lost.
Mhm.
And if there was anything that I could pass on to my kids, it's never being afraid to be able to ask, because you have nothing to lose in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that. And my friend, I think what I think is so beautiful is that these communities that you are creating and supporting people with co-creating is that we're creating these opportunities to have conversations like this, conversations where it'd be like, hey, is this good? How do I do this? How do I navigate that? And just this idea that there's like no one person has all the answers. And even as the facilitator, that leader of that membership or that community, you're going to learn from the people in your group. They're going to be able to help build and co-create these amazing opportunities to be with people with good energy, that heart-centered, focused on doing the good work and being able to make what matters most matter most. So my friends, Stu, I'm so mindful of your time, and again, I could talk to you for days. I do know this February you actually have like a birthday present to yourself, sort of, sort of speaking, about a really cool project that you're working on. I would love it if you could tell us a wee bit about that before we land this plane together.
Yeah. Well, um, for 2.5 years, I had a podcast and I was consistent and steady. We
Yeah.
published over 216 episodes of that podcast.
Wow.
And then I hit a point in 2021, Robin, where I got completely burnt out.
Fair.
I had just come off of a big promotion. We had fulfilled on that. And I went into a really dark place and spun off into a place that I've never been before, where it, in hindsight, it was definitely a mild depression, but my days would basically mean I'd wake up and we'd walk our kids to school. I'd come back, I'd ride the Peloton, and then I'd sit in a chair and I would look out the window for the entire day until the kids came home. And everything came to a crashing halt. All of my work, the podcast, everything. And so it was a really weird place to be, because it was like out of body experience. I could see myself spiraling, and yet I couldn't snap myself out of it. But the thing that did ultimately bring me back, and by the way, I'm back now,
Oh, we can
but
tell.
the
We
thing
can
that
tell it when
brought me
you're back.
back,
You're
yeah,
back. Yeah.
but the thing that brought me back was community.
Yes.
Because at that point in time in 2021, Canada was still in lockdown
Yeah.
of COVID. And so for now, over a year and a bit, we had been isolated, and I didn't have that connection and I didn't have that camaraderie. And listen, doing anything by yourself is lonely, let alone if you're trying to learn a new skill, or you're trying to solve a problem, or you're trying to improve your life in some way. Like, it could be really lonely when you're navigating that journey by yourself. But the flip is also true. It could be incredibly exciting and rewarding and fun when you're on that journey with others, and others are pouring into you and giving you ideas and feedback and encouragement and lifting you up when you're down and cheering you on when you've had a big success. All of those things matter. And so I believe that community is more powerful and important today than ever before. And a good example, I am relaunching my podcast on my birthday in
Yay.
February. and I'm excited to bring it back. I am full of new ideas, and it's called Marketing Your Business. And we are diving deep on helping entrepreneurs be able to grow their business, because I believe that entrepreneurs are the ones that are fueling so much of the success in this world. And the more we can support each other, the more good we can do in this world. And so I'm excited. I'm excited because the journey from where we were to, going through the struggle and bringing it back, I'm excited about it. It's refreshed, it's new, it's fun, it's exciting. And I'm thankful to all the communities that I've been a part of who have helped bring me back up and have been encouraging me to get back on this podcast horse and make a go of it. So that's what we're bringing back, and I'm really excited for it.
Oh my goodness, Stu. I'm excited to tune into that. And again, thank you for just your energy, your openness, just this idea that we are able to create, predictable profits like your book talks about, this recurring revenue, that it's okay to want to be successful and not to, sell ourselves short in terms of, some of those old narratives that maybe kind of come in every once in a while. And again, as I said at the top of this, like you're not gatekeeping your secrets. Like these aren't secrets. Like in your
No,
book,
they're all
Predictable
in there.
Profits, it is a blueprint. Like so, and again, I appreciate so very much that, as I shared earlier, my team and I had a chance to sit with you in person. You walked us through the process on how we can create membership. You have all the tools, being able to work with your system with Membership.io. It is such a refreshing tool that is so much more than just a Facebook group. And no disrespect to Facebook groups, but you have cracked the code on creating accessible ways for people to be able to build authentic communities in a way that's profitable, in a way that's purpose-filled, and a way that brings people together like nobody else has. So, Stu, thank you for the good work you do. And I'm so excited to tune into your podcast. I encourage folks to check out your book. I'm so glad it's out in the world and that you're doing what you're doing. So thanks for spending time with me today.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. And I am so excited for all the people that will be joining your membership, because as you said, we spent the day like diving deep, and the transformation that you're helping people get is incredible. And so I'm excited for everybody there too. So thanks so much for you and your team, and for having me here today.
Awesome. Take good care.
Thank you for spending time with me on this episode of Life by Design. I appreciate if you have a moment to pay this forward, share it with someone who you think might benefit from the ideas shared in this episode. If you're feeling so inspired, please also rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.